Anyways, welcome to the Paracast. I'm your host, Tomas the Boss Fernandez. Joining you from my not from my living room, from my upstairs loft. What am I saying? What am I
That's
saying?
ballsy.
That's ballsy. From the living room? No one
Yeah.
do that. No one
On a
record
Sunday,
there.
You have to worry about the home teachers and the
This
bishop
economy.
coming over.
In this economy, he just wants to remind you. He just wants to remind everyone. Ted was right. It's Robert Wyatt.
He was right. All I'm going to say is you guys don't need this damn technology. And by the way, if anybody's selling some land up in the North Montana woods, I may be interested.
The Paracast is going to purchase it.
Besides,
I have a typewriter already.
Besides blowing up people's with bombs, which is highly immoral and unethical, and two, not very effective from what he was trying to do, because they're just individual peoples. Go back and listen to the manifesto one more time, and you might get a little hint that we're moving in a direction that Ted might have called out.
But isn't that the way a lot of things are, though? Because it's like, sure. Take away the murder, take away the mass murder, take away this, and boy, they had some good points.
Well, the one thing is like
they were freaking evil.
You're just like
it sounds like you're a Hitler apologist all of a sudden. Am I gonna have to disavow this podcast?
It's just the man. But it's like it's kind of like the wrong way of going about things, and then too early. So you have the wrong way, like you have the wrong way about going things, and then you're too early. It's like John Brown, 2 years before the Civil War, took over Harper's Ferry with him and his boys. Shot things up. We're trying to get a bunch of guns to take down South, so they give them to slaves, so slaves can free themselves. And then he gets put on trial and he gets hung for his thing. Now, then it's just like, when you're sitting there looking at 500,000 dead Americans, you're like, I kind of wish John would have been successful in that. That would have saved everybody some time and effort.
SpongeBob meme. 5 minutes later.
5 minutes later. Also joining us
now, savior.
He splits faster than a man who finds out his date's name used to be Brian. It's Jared Stepp.
Listen, two people sharing friction. You leave me alone.
It's all the same. It's all the same no matter how you split it. What is not the same is Robert's bank account. Robert, fill us in.
Actually, I have more money now than I did Friday, so I'm not really concerned about it.
Hold on. Let's start off first by saying limited optics is super gay. It should not be a division. Anyone who shoots it is denying themselves the pleasure of competition in carry optics, the most well-attended and most competitive division in the sport. Go ahead.
Actually, funny enough, the limited optics is actually really cooking.
Don't make your excuses.
To be fair,
I don't have plans on really shooting this gun.
It is 2023. The gays are pretty cooking.
Yes, and if we could cook the gays and the bis and the L's
and in time for June,
we could just cook them all in a nice giant bonfire. Oh, did I say that out loud? Jeez, the disavowal is going to come hard and fast at this one.
And back to Hitler.
Well, we went to Godwin's law real quick.
I know that's a record.
No, I bought a Prodigy, and I actually I shot one a couple weeks ago. Really liked it. I liked the grip on it and everything like that. And so I just been playing with it. And then Tommy had found a deal, and I didn't get on it then. And I was just like sitting around. And I kept thinking about it. And then what was it? It was like Thursday. It was like Thursday night. I went out for a walk. We talked about this on the Patreon side, and one thing led to another. And I bought a Prodigy. So we'll see what happens.
So the general knock, the general knock on the Prodigy is that some people can't get theirs to run, and you're saying that it's a magazine spring issue is what people find out, and there's some parts that you have to buy on top of it to kind of get it to where it needs to be.
Maybe. I've heard people. Go ahead, Jared.
So 1911s and 2011s, I like to just simply, the best way to describe it is it's all about betting. The cheaper the gun is, or the manufacturer typically, the more likelihood you're going to roll, and you're going to have a crap roll, and the gun's going to be
Critical
crap.
fail. Son of a
Exactly. So with a Prodigy, with Springfield Armory in general, especially with their lower tier options, which honestly the Prodigy is because it's all MIM parts, you could roll that D20 and get a 20.
Yeah.
And it could be an absolutely phenomenal gun. And you can go post on the internet that mine's worked
forever. I don't know your problem.
Exactly. Or you could roll a nat 1 and it's just a hot pile of garbage. And it really, the more money you pay, you're stacking your boosts. So if you roll and it's a 6 and you get a Springfield, it's going to be a hot piece of crap. But if you roll and it's a 6, and guess what? You go with a little bit more money. Let's say, just off the top of my head, even the nicest companies will have limits. So even if you get an Atlas, even if you get an Infinity, even if you get the nicest of the nice guns,
but with those nicer
possible.
guns, you're probably just knocking off some of the 1s and 2s of that dice.
Exactly. That bonus is going to increase with the nicer company because they're going to have better QC, they're going to have better parts, they're going to have better everything. So is it possible to get a lemon from Infinity? Absolutely. Is it likely? No. Is it possible to get a lemon from Springfield? Is it likely? More so
Maybe.
than other companies like Bull Armory or Staccato or Stealth Arms or whatever is coming out nowadays. So the Prodigies absolutely can be great guns, but you're just doing a dice roll. And if you're comfortable with that, go with God.
You know what, Jared? Honestly, everything you just said, I think is really a good observation on that setup. I cannot disagree with one thing. I've had the 1911s that I've had from Springfield, 1911s, obviously. They've been great. I've had good luck with them, and I've been very, very happy with them. Magazines are always the issue with 1911s, at least mine. So I don't disagree with you, not one bit. I bought the Prodigy. Okay, as we talked about in the Patreon episode, I bought it because I was kind of antsy and it was very impulse purchase. But I had shot it, I held it, I shot it, really liked how well the gun shot, and I was like, it's not a bad gun. And the other gun that I was looking at was a Bull Armory, and honestly, I couldn't find it. And I'm like,
yeah.
And I just couldn't find it. That was the one that I was, because I looked at that one and I'm like, okay, for a little bit more money, you get this gun, and this gun is really a good gun. But I couldn't find it. And if I had been anywhere else in the world, like if we had just kept walking and not stopped and talked for the frickin' ever, then I wouldn't have bought the gun. Because when my brain just sits there and does nothing, it has to do something. And so I decided to buy a gun.
I think
But you're right. I agree with you.
I think for limited optics and having a gun like a Prodigy, and the place that we live in that has a bunch of guys who were shooting 2011s for a long time and are very friendly and were able to work on one, and having it's not like you bought a Prodigy and did not have the money to buy quality parts to stick in the Prodigy on top of that, and didn't have competent people around
True.
you to put it into. Because there's one thing that happens with 1911s and 2011s, and you think about this, is that the design is still allows you to be the most tunable platform out there for anybody. It's not like Glock, you can sit there and dump a bunch of aftermarket stuff in, but it's not like you can switch between aluminum polymer and steel frames to put on a 2011. And I think, and that's also optics ready. So I think that is a pretty good setup. And what did they do with their optics cut again? Didn't they borrow something from somebody else?
There's
agency
a term.
arms.
Yes, they used the agency cut.
Arm. What'd you call it?
AOS.
AOS.
Yep,
yeah, I don't understand that, but it's supposed to be really good.
No, that is a fantastic way to fly because it's a dovetailed set in there on top of the screws and all that. So that is a fantastic way to sit there and mount an optic onto a gun. So I think that's going to be pretty awesome. And I would say shoot it in limited optics. I mean that is a really freaking kind of cool gun if you can kind of get it set up like Matt had his setup at the
Matt,
I mean,
listening to Matt, Matt when I realized he had a Prodigy and he'd gone through and stuck all of his Infinity guts into it. I was like, oh, okay, maybe there's something there.
Did he do a metal grip?
No, it did. It looked like it was the
Just the Prodigy
plastic
grip.
product. Yeah.
Did he silicon carbide it up?
It did not look like it. It did not look like it.
The-
I actually really, I don't know if it's just more chunky, but holding a 2011, at least that Prodigy in my hands, it felt great. It's almost as like nice as an M&P. The way that my hands work with an M&P grip.
Yeah.
It was just, I mean, my hand just like wraps around. I'm like, oh, this is very flat face shootable. I'm not hooking over or anything. That alone is pretty nice. Unless you buy an Atlas, you can't really get a left hand eject. So you're or a left hand, technically,
Setup.
I guess it'd be a right hand mag catch release.
Yeah.
And so you have to deal with that. It's fine. It is what it is, but I don't know how much I'll shoot it. I bought it on a very, very bad impulse, and yeah, it is what it is. But it'll be fun. I should get it Tuesday or Wednesday. I don't know. I have to go pick it up from the armory, which means that I'll probably forget that it exists by the time it actually gets in. So it should be fun. It'll be something different.
No, that sounds like that would be a lot of fun. Just kind of screwing around with 1911. So one thing I wish I could do more, and that's shoot 45 ACP. So I sit there and I see you grab that 9mm Prodigy, and I'm just like, man, kind of want like a 9mm full size 1911 type pistol. That would be pretty fun.
I like this one. It's sad the company. This is the dumbest thing on this. I don't know if you can see it very well, but the mag release it was from Cylinder and Slide, and it's just a little tiny tab. It goes on. It replaces the standard mag release, but it gives you a way to drop the mag without completely altering the mag release.
Yeah.
And I just like it. I think it's really cool.
And too bad it's not going to be able to be put on your.
Unfortunately,
your
I know.
Prodigy.
I actually was looking at it, and I was kind of wondering if there was a way that I could actually, because Cylinder and Slide doesn't make it anymore, and
you could get a Dremel.
That's a nice thing. That is one of the nice.
I have some law enforcement friends who are really adept at dremeling.
I heard you talking shit.
That is one of the nice things that you can get when you get a lot of these pistols now that have replaceable frames, P320s and whatnot, and Prodigies, and like you can basically take the risk of silicone carbiding one, messing around, screwing one up, and if you think that you've actually honestly messed it up, you're just another grip away from putting one together and then having a pretty decent time of having exactly what you want in the pistol.
So that's actually a question, because I saw a video where the guy took the Prodigy down, and he's like, yeah, you remove this screw and this, and then all of a sudden the grip comes apart, and you have the rest of the gun here, and then I'm sitting there and I'm like, does that work for all 2011s? Oh, really? Yeah. So theoretically, I could buy, just throwing a thing, I could buy an Atlas grip, and you could throw that in for the most part.
In theory, if they let you do that, yes.
Okay. Interesting. Yeah, that's cool.
No, that is pretty sweet, especially if you can get the magazines running and you can get the gun just running the way you want. I think that would be an absolutely cool pistol. I think the DS, if you can get the 4 1/4 DS to be running pretty decent, that wouldn't be a fun little carry around blaster to have also.
I talked to Dave, and he said that the 5-inch, the slide, I have to shoot it to see what he's talking about. But he says the 5-inch model, the slide runs sluggish, and you need to cut it down. And there's like two camps, right? So there's the side that like wants that slide to move like whippy fast,
yeah, and
the others, like I'm more in the camp that I'm like I want that slide just chugging along, and yeah, and I don't know. So I'd really like, I mean, like all my CZs, I've liked the slide being a little bit more slow and I've never liked that real whip effect. But I would love to actually sit down and shoot two 2011 side by side, one with a whippy slide and one with one that's just chunking along, and just see, because I don't have a strong opinion like about it in the 2011 because I don't know, but I'd just be really interested to see. So I'll take Jared out one day and we'll look at it, because Jared's are always really, really solid.
They're very whippy.
Yeah. Do you want them to be that way?
Yes.
Why?
Well, you like your Glocks whippy too.
Yeah. I run my recoil springs incredibly light. Like this 2011 probably has an 8-pound, I think, recoil spring in it.
Mm-hmm.
And I think my Glock has an 11.
What's a
Off
stock?
the top of my head?
Stock
I think
should be
the stock
17
is
in
like
the Glock.
17.
Oh,
Most guys
wow.
in competition run 13s or 15s. Just in general, I like the impulse of the whippy gun a little bit more. I like
Mhm.
the snappier impulse. Other people prefer that chug, and it's kind of personal preference. I think it really just kind of depends on what you want to do. I think having it be a little whippier definitely helps split faster,
Really?
but it just kind of depends on what you like. Yeah, so if I get a full tuned out Glock that I tune out perfectly for me, I can
Mhm.
split a Glock and I can do 12s or
Wow.
13s with the Glock. I cannot do that with a stock factory Glock just because it's not what I need to ride that recoil. Whereas
Gotcha.
this Warwick that I've had this gun for 6, 7, 8 years. I don't even know, man.
Yeah,
And I probably
I
shot.
remember when you got that gun.
Yeah, I mean, I've shot 50,000 rounds out of this. I think basically all the reloads I've done have gone through this gun, and I went and I have all the I have all the like the 8-pound kegs and the little 1-pound kegs of tight group.
Mhm.
And I went and grabbed those all the other day, and I added all the empty ones up. I'm like, oh God, this is a lot. That means that's how many rounds? I did the math, and it was like over 50,000. I'm like, okay, and that all goes through this little guy. So it's really personal preference. I know Kenny likes the Ka-Chunk a little bit more. And there's some argument for that because you really don't need to do 12, 13 splits in a match. Having it maybe a little bit of a softer return makes sense where you're just trying to do 2 alpha, 2 alpha, 2 alpha.
Yeah,
Whereas if you're just trying to spaz out and
a
go.
slightly slower slide, like especially iron sight shooting. I remember shooting that. Like that's the one thing with like the Beretta and like the BrigTac and the PX4 is that they have a very smooth but very kind of slow. It's like the Rival. The Rival, even though it seems like it should be kind of lightened up, it does have a kind of a with the factory recoil spring a slower cycle time, and so it does kind of help you sit there and put it on target and returns automatically to the same spot you fired and fire it again. But like when you're getting really into the predictive shooting splits, like Jared is a predictive shooter. I mean, he can flip it on, but he is a predictive shooter, and that gets
Right.
him a lot of advantage at a lot of the close stuff. So, and then gives me the disadvantage because I'm not, even though I'm trying to split, I cannot do that as automatically as other people can, and so
You can. You just got to trust yourself to do it.
yeah. Well, now that I mechanically, physically can split at 17,
You got
it
you
gets
got to
better.
do the Sicario Javier Bardem thing. That was great.
Yep. A bunch of marks in the concrete. Anyway, Jared, do you have something to share with us?
Oh, shooting wise, what did I do this week? I didn't do a whole ton just because this has been a busy month for us. We just had a wedding yesterday, which was a lot of fun. My wife's little sister got married, so it's the last of her family to get married, and so that was exciting.
Nice.
And it was an enjoyable time. The one fun thing, though, I did get to do was there's a local guy here who goes by the name of Asian Dave.
Hey.
And he's great. I've shot a bunch of matches with him. He normally does 3-gun, just comes out and has a lot of fun. And he got all the John Wick guns. So he has the John Wick 3 Combat Master, and he just got the John Wick 4, the Pit Viper in, which is the iron sight compensated model that Terran Tactical is putting out.
I see the Terran guns. I've handled your Terran Tactical slide.
Mm-hmm.
I kind of look at them. I go, man, they look nice, but it
Right.
is a Gen 4, a Gen 3, or Gen 5 Glock, or it is a 2011. There's all these other people making 2011s. I see what Pit Viper is what Sand Viper, Pit Viper, 6,000, $7,000.
$7,000.
How was it?
It was fucking awesome. So I actually shot the Sand Viper about 2 months ago. That's on my Instagram, on Waypoint Training, if you guys want to check it out. And then I just got the Pit Viper, which is the movie gun. And the Pit Viper I actually liked a little bit more. I could tell I also had better tuned loads for a comp. So I had the same loads that I was shooting in my Staccato XC that just absolutely ran like lights out. I used those bullets in that Pit Viper, and holy crap. I came up and just ripped out 6 shots, and I just died laughing. Like, I stopped shooting because I was laughing so hard, because there was just zero recoil, and it was just like, brrr, and I think they were 10s and 11 splits, and that's the first time I shot it. It's not like I had to practice to get that.
Wow.
So that was nuts. And then I posted another video, which is, again, it's on my Instagram, Waypoint Training. That was the second time I shot it, which was the rest of the mag, and that was just absolute blast. I mean, it was what I think I did 12s, 13s, and then I got it down to 11s and 10s for a handful of rounds, and then back up to 14 because I did like 12, 15 shots or so.
So this is,
But it's insane. Very, very nice gun.
It's kind of comped like the Spectres, right? Like the Spectre comps. Is it? What's the like?
No. It is an actual genuine compensator. It's just like the Staccato XC. So you lock the barrel back, and it basically has like a sight block. That's the last inch of the barrel, but in the sight block, it has a cutout on the top. So it's just like the Staccato XC.
It's not part of the. It's not part of the slide. It's
not part of the slide.
It's a full comp.
Part of the barrel. It's a single piece barrel that actually suspiciously looks like my Staccato XC barrel. So I don't know if they're making them for them, but the way that the sight was cut around was the exact same way that the Staccato XC was cut around, which differed from what I've seen in other high-end compensators, like high-end 2011s with comps. So I'm curious if Staccato is making that for them. I don't know. But it was a hell of a gun. It's the most cool, pointless gun I've ever shot. Because it's only iron sights. It's not even like a plate. Like, if it had a plate on it, I could argue, but no plate, just iron sights only. And I mean, they're nice fibers and a comp on there, so you have to shoot it in open, but you don't have a dot, and it's just like, this is the coolest gun that is absolutely useless for competition shooting. Like, this is so cool, but so
it's
dumb.
a range pimp only gun.
Oh, it absolutely is. But I will say that is an absolutely gorgeous gun, especially like when Dave got it. Like, he hadn't even shot it yet when he showed it to me. He's like, check this out. Yeah, I haven't shot it yet. I've been busy. So this is his first range trip. And so we played with it for a little bit. And I probably only shot, 20, 30 rounds out of it. But I didn't want to shoot more.
That second and a half you took to shoot those 20 or 30 rounds. I mean,
I didn't want to shoot anymore because I'm like, I'm gonna start selling things to buy this, and I like my children, so I should not sell them.
How hard would it be to put an optic on that?
I mean, you just have to.
Well, if it's an open gun, I guess you just put the slide. What do they call that thing?
I mean,
the riser or whatever.
But supposedly TTI is going to be coming out with a limited optics gun, so I'm guessing it's probably going to be a Sand Viper, Pit Viper combo. Because I mean, in theory, you should be able to make that exact gun, but just don't cut the comp out on the barrel, and bam, that's a perfect limited
Yeah.
optics gun.
Yeah.
So if they
And Jared
Jared
he
froze.
had a seizure. He might still be talking. We're not sure. Anyways,
I'll just keep an eye on that marker because I'm gonna have to fix that.
In case he's still talking while we're sitting here trying to do the commercials. Anyway, head on over to Dominate Defense. Use promo code PARA10. I'm waiting for Jason to send me a brand new belt for a slenderer version of me so I can not use that other belt. So check him out. Also, I'm waiting for Precision Holsters to make a rival for it so I don't have to use the holster that came in the box because it is my preferred holster.
Oh yeah, I actually looked. I was curious, and I looked to see if they made a holster for the Prodigy, and maybe I did something wrong. But I go through and I like filled out all of the forms and everything, and like it just says it has the add to cart all grayed out. So maybe they don't make it. I don't know, but it's certainly on there. But it'd be cool. It'd be cool. I still don't know what I'm gonna do with that gun. I really don't. This is why I shouldn't be allowed to have access to credit cards.
Yeah,
well, technically speaking, the last 3 digits of my credit card.
the security code on the back. Yeah, check them out. Precision Holsters. Use promo code PARA10. Also, Jared's class is a lot better than his internet connection, so you can check him out at Waypoint Training on Instagram, and then also Rune Tactical. Check out Rune Tactical. You can get 10% off using the same promo code PARA10 and get an extra round inside that magazine. Check him out, Rune Tactical. Get W74. Get a higher your guide rod if you want all that fat weight. Anyways, Telegram.
Because Kevin's kind of an okay guy, and we sort of like him.
He's somewhat okay. He keeps trying to give me mechanic parts to put in my gun. I'm like, listen, I want to run it stock for a little bit. Why don't you understand? So he gave me a bunch of nice stuff, so he was very kind of him. Anyways, Telegram. Join there, search Paracast. You can find us. That's how you get a hold of us. You can ask us questions, and we'll do our best to answer them. Robert?
From Sean Edmonds. Do you have any suggestions for breaking in an AR safety? The ambi safety on one is stiff as crap, and I've lubed it, and other than just flicking it back and forth, do you guys have any ideas?
So when you put them together, sometimes, if you want more tension on it, sometimes it can be just the spring. I mean, I have some springs that are a little bit harder than others. Sometimes the detent can be a little bit sharper than others. Sometimes the safety itself, where the detent sticks in, can be less finished. And sometimes even finishes on the safety can kind of have them bind. I mean, the easiest way to make it softer is just to go under that detent and give it a little clip of that coil. Just cut one coil off, and that detent will become pretty soft. If it becomes too soft, then you're 37 cents away from getting another one.
Yeah, that's literally what I've done on all of mine, because they do seem to come in and they're a little bit more stiff. And so I've just gotten in the habit of, I don't know how many. I just start at the top and I cut 1, cut 2, and then until it gets to a point where I feel really good about it. And then that's that.
Yep. That's the best way that you can sit there and handle them.
Let's see here. Oops, sorry, hang on. Castle Bravo. Let's see. Yesterday at the match, I had a piece of jacket shrapnel ricochet off a steel target and embed itself in my hand. There was a lot of blood, and I might need a few stitches, but fortunately nothing major. What's the worst range injury you guys have had, and what kind of medical supplies do you keep with you at matches or range practice?
Worst range injury. I saw Adam Reiser get concussed from a popper. That was probably the worst range injury I've seen. Besides, I haven't been present when someone shot themselves. I mean, but I've definitely heard of matches where people have blown off the tips of their finger or shot themselves in the leg.
I've been there, and so that's suboptimal.
Yeah, I mean the worst thing I've had happen to me was literally a Barry Steel Open. Someone shot a .45 caliber on the other bay. The bullet went up in the air and then landed on the backside of the bay right on my testicle. while Jared was standing right next to me and heard the thunk and just watched me crumple. But yeah, I've had the jacket stuff. Definitely like the blowout kit is always something nice to sit there, have the blowout kit and the tourniquet from the serious stuff. But the things that you'll see probably like that do not require a tourniquet or something out the most blood is like when you get the 38 Super Comp jacket caught in somebody's head, like in the scalp or something like that. Then you'll get the blood pouring down. So gauze and medical tape. I mean, there's a lot of stuff that Band-Aids can probably do for a lot of stuff we get hit. But a lot of times when we get hit in a much bigger area, and sometimes those things bleed much more than like a standard Band-Aid would do. So some gauze and some medical tape to wrap it up there and make your own kind of bandage to wrap up would probably be the best way to just minimize everything and cover everything at the same time.
Yeah, I agree. I in my my standard carry around with me at the range bag, I've just got some Band-Aids in there, and because that's 95% of what we ever actually need. But in my truck, I have I have a first aid kit that I use for CERT for when I did cert training forever ago, and I've always just had a pretty good first aid kit in there for that. And that's got all the real important stuff. If I ever needed to go get something, I could always do that. And I think that's always been that works really, really well. But beyond that, I think it was Mark Compton. He actually wrote an article that showed up in USPSA talking about the information that was needed, or basically all the medical supplies you should have at matches and stuff like that. And so that's a good one to go read if actually I don't know if it's on their website or if it's actually in the magazine. If it's in the magazine, forget about it, because nobody except for old people read the magazine anymore.
Well, then tracking that information again later on is not easy.
Let's see here. From Kevin Isaac, gun oil versus gun grease.
Depends on the gun. I always found that grease seemed to work better on metal framed firearms. I would always grease the 1911, grease the 92s, Mobile One, like synthetic grease. You could sit there and apply it on there, and it would do pretty good and help out. And then I always seemed to like the way that oil worked on Glocks and M&Ps. I think those guns kind of just run better with a little bit thinner of a lubricant on there. But the steel on steel stuff or steel on aluminum stuff, I always preferred grease on those. And then AR-15s, I always preferred oil.
Really?
Yeah. Yeah, there's one thing that's just like if you just hose down an AR-15 in the bolt carrier, like you're fine. If you over grease something, you can kind of get in trouble, and you got to be a little bit more specific with the grease. But other than that, I've always preferred oil. I mean, I still got some of that Lucas gun oil from the 2015 IDPA regional, and Robert brought home like 37 bottles of it because.
Yeah, I still got some.
So we're good for a while. Well, that stuff is pretty solid stuff, and so I always prefer just doing oil. What seems to be the third option nowadays is when I handle most people's pistols is none. I mean I get people's like I go handle people's pistols and like the guns are freaking bone dry. I remember doing a Mag 40 class, and then somebody was shooting a SIG P226, and it would not lock back, and people were like speculating on what it was. Is this spring, that spring, this thing or that thing? Mass walks over, goes, that gun's bone dry, oil it. Oiled it. Guess what happened? Click. Last shot. The slide went back. I had a guy at work's Beretta. It wouldn't work. He said, "Would it eject?" Open the thing up. I'm like, looking, everything's fine. The gun is bone dry. I mean, guns work better lubricated, and it just seems like most people are just like, whatever. I don't do anything. I don't have to service this or whatever. It's just like, okay.
You have to remember it like this. Guns, like sex, work better when things are wet.
Yeah,
just putting that out there.
Whether you're with the group or by yourself.
No, honestly, dude. Just on my desk right now, I have oil. I have this grease mixture that I made up where I cut down oil and what is it? ATF? No, it's ATF. I can't remember what it is. Bearing grease or whatever. I have this. Let's see, gun butter Prolix lube. I have got just about every single kind of gun oil and lube that was ever produced, and they all work. They
Yep.
work great. Uh, I I grew up with this idea that if it slides, you put grease on it, and if it rolls or rotates, you put oil on it. It's
Oh, there you
not
go.
That's not like this tried and true hard fast thing, but that's kind of how I've always approached it. I think every single one of these things out there are good, but the dirty secret of all this is most of this stuff, whether it's I'm not even going to put names on these things, whether it's these like the latest grease company or the oil company, whatever they are, it's just oil. And it's not your gun oil is not somehow magically better than that high performance engine that they put Mobile One in,
Yep.
because it's got a lot more loose tolerances, and it certainly isn't prone to failure if you F something up like you would with a performance race engine. And so you could go out and buy like Mobile One and run that in your guns, and it's going to work really, really well.
I
Everything else, every single thing else that you hear about, this gun oil is magic and the viscosity and all this other stuff, it's just marketing. That's all it is. It's pure marketing. And now you're going to have people that can say, no, Rob, you don't understand. This gun grease works so good on this gun. And I'm sure it does. I'm sure it works fantastic. But the stuff that's been working in engines that are actually worth a lot more than our guns, and it's been working for the past 100 some odd years, there's a reason they keep using it. And they're a lot more precision fit than our guns are.
Yeah, and some stuff can be like whatever cleaner, can wipe away better. Like there's a lot of people who are sponsored by gun companies. I mean, oil companies, and that's fine. Like
100%. I
having
don't have an
having
issue with
stuff
it.
in the sport, it's not something when I spend my gun money on that I sit there and go, I need this. I remember shooting an episode of that Shooting Straight television show, and a guy didn't have his AR-15 when at work, and I looked in my shooting bag and I was like, oh, I don't have any oil. Give me 1 second. I took the dipstick out of my engine, wiped it onto the bolt, put it back in my engine, pulled it back out, wiped it back onto the bolt, and did that like 4 times till there was sufficient lubrication on that bolt. Put that back in the AR-15. Guess what? Ran like a top.
Yeah, exactly. So here's an interesting thing. So the things that make me like a gun oil company over one or the other is not that they produce some wonder lube or something like that. It's that they produce it in a
Applicator.
handy little
Yeah.
applicator. So you have the cherry balm stuff, and it has like a little fingernail brush type applicator, or you have this gun butter, which has a little syringe type thing. I've seen oil companies that are very similar to that. I can put those in my range bag, and they sit in there. They don't do anything wrong, but
Yes.
they're perfect. They're handy whenever you need them. They just tuck out of the way. They're better than like the ketchup packets that we got from the IDPA regional championship that we stole 7,000 of, and then put into a big giant
Well,
container.
well, the other thing is too is it's like the case has to be range bag ready. Like it can't
Yeah,
have something where it rotates or turns and then pours out there, or it can't be like some solvents or some of the spray on that. Like if great temperature changes and they just kind of like find their way up the nozzle and pour out, like it just range can ready. And some of the grease is good like that because most of the grease is pretty much range ready in the containers that it comes in. But yeah, like
yeah.
good applicator.
Ben Berry forever ago. It may have been on Triangle Tactical that he talked about this. That's how long ago this was. But you can buy on Amazon. It's these little applicator pens where you put a little bit of oil into them, and then it screws down on there. You stow it away in your bag, and then whenever you need to lubricate a gun or something like that, it's just right there. That's what's really cool to me, is the ability to in the field address a problem and solve it without having to worry about that gun oil or something just
Yep.
splooging all over inside your
Yep.
bag.
Barry's has one that has the nice thin applicator on it that's already on there, and you just pop down the
That guy?
top. Yep, it's
Yep.
great.
Yeah, works
Great.
fantastic. And so yeah,
Hey,
I've got so many of these things. It's silly, but we get so I think we just get so wrapped around the axle about gun oil and stuff like that. And it's like, guys,
holster belt patch, holster belt, um, pouches, pistol dots. That's kind
Yeah.
of like the one thing and then you can go from your Hearing Pro and your Eye Pro and all that other stuff. But like those are the things that kind of really sit there and matter. And of course, the quality of your ammunition.
Yeah.
Kind of always phase me.
Dirk from Dirk, he says maybe it's too late, but should I get a dash cam for my car? Oh, he wanted to ask Jared, but should he get a dash cam for his car?
Well, as long as it's not connected through Wi-Fi, as Jared would show us, yeah, I think you'd be pretty much okay. You should get one.
Is that a common thing nowadays?
I
People have
guess
dash
I guess
cams?
so. I mean, we literally left to go to the store today and took a look to the left, and somebody had already gotten an accident, and they have them up there in Walmart. And so, if you're a sober and studious and courteous driver, I would say probably go ahead and have one. So,
Seems reasonable. Well, that was our last question.
well, awesome. Well, that's a show, and once again, me and Robert, dutiful Tom and Robert coming on to do a show, even when
Because we love you.
even when most people don't even want to stick out for a full show, we're still here for you. So for you know what, screw it. For Robert Wyatt, I'm Tom Nelson, bidding you peace, love, and soul as we depart into the open waters of the sea of life on a little tugboat we like to call the Paracast.
Good night, everybody.